go live then. And we're live. What's going on, everyone? It's Talks with Ken here today, and we're going to be talking about Vivek Ramaswamy and why he's going to be. I think he's the GOP dark horse, because one of the reasons I like Vivek so much, I read his books. I got both his books, Nation of Victims and Woke Inc. And a lot of the things he talk about is stuff that I legitimately care about, and I think he's my ideal candidate. I like a lot of things he's saying. So this is gonna be an interview between him and Michael Knowles that he did like 2 months ago, and to me, it was one of his best interviews. And someone who's not sure or who doesn't know who Vivek is, he's an entrepreneur, same status as Trump, essentially, right? He's an entrepreneur, businessman, biotech company, smart guy, right? And honestly, I think he has a good shot, especially on the debate stage. And enough rambling about what I think. I already got the screen set up. I want to kind of dive into it, and I'll give my thoughts throughout the video. Let's take a look.
Ramaswamy is an extraordinarily successful entrepreneur, the founder of a major biopharmaceutical company, the co-founder of Strive.
What happened?
Asset Management. He's the author of a couple of books, notably Woke Inc. He's a graduate of Harvard and Yale, and now Vivek is seeking the Republican nomination for president in 2024. Every presidential campaign has the usual suspects, the governors and the senators and sometimes the congressmen. And then, every so often, some totally unexpected figure pops up and shakes up the race. And this year, that person would be my friend, Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek, thank you for making the time. I know you're very busy on the campaign trail.
It's good to be on. This is my first stop after getting off the CPAC stage here, so that was fun. And you know what? We're having fun with this.
When you first told me that you were thinking about maybe running for president, you know, my only thought was, I would have expected he'd wait until 2028. But I was not surprised that you would. I don't even know if you knew that you might run someday, but I did. I sort of had this thought.
You have good instincts. Huh?
Yes, yeah, but you've jumped right into the race. A lot of people do not know who you are exactly. The people who do know who you are have been saying, don't write this guy out just because you haven't heard his name.
And I think a lot of people are going to get a big surprise when the debate stage happened. And obviously, we saw what happened with Ron DeSantis and his Twitter space launch. And personally, I didn't like it. I figured when he said he was going to announce it on Twitter, I had the expectation that it would have been like a live stream, like a video live stream for some reason. But seeing it only audio, now you got people out here questioning if he was reading from a script, which we can't confirm nor deny, right? It's up in the air, right? And I don't know, it felt like radio. I felt like I took a step back. I'm like, hey, we're in the technology age. We used to video. Why are we only getting audio? Right? And I don't know. I think it was a big mishap on Ron DeSantis' part. And a lot of things that Vivek is going to get on here. And even if Vivek doesn't win, Vivek is like, hey, I believe, in my view, Vivek's actually going for presidency. But Vivek is humble enough to say, hey, I can take a Constellation Prize. And if this just makes everyone, because he's pretty, I think he's pretty conservative, especially with the policies he's pushing. He's pretty conservative on a lot of issues, and I think it'll be interesting to see him on the debate stage. That's all I'm trying to say, because throughout the video, you'll see that this guy portrays himself pretty well. And in my view, he's a good debater. He articulates himself very well. You see him in the media trails, like when he had his interview with Chuck Todd, I believe his name was, CNN, possibly the reason why Don Lemon got fired. Who knows? But he carries himself pretty well, and he can hold his own in a lot of conversations and debate. But enough about me. Let's get back into the video.
This is a very impressive guy who brings in a wealth of knowledge from a lot of different segments of the public life. And I happen to agree with that take. So I'm very excited to help introduce you to the rest of the public.
Thank you, man.
Now that I've been very nice to you, I'm going to be cold. I'm going to grill you. I'm going to give you very tough questions.
Oh, like you've done in the past. I know the real Michael, so I'm ready for you.
Okay, first question. Who's your favorite president?
Thomas Jefferson. I think Thomas Jefferson embodies the founding culture in the United States. So I'm a big founding principles guy, for sure. Actually, the whole premise of my candidacy, by the way, is reviving the principles that set the nation into motion. This actually should be a really easy election. There's hard elections where everyone agrees on the basic principles and then you disagree on some really important policy issue. This should be an easy election where free speech, open debate, all the stuff that Thomas Jefferson wrote about in the Declaration of Independence and beyond. This is the stuff that actually most Americans agree on, and yet we live in this moment where they're artificially fraught. But anyway, why?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't know. Hello, Jonathan Fields. A lot of people, I don't know. This election is going to be an interesting one, right? We got so many people running. I don't think Nikki Haley has a chance. Sorry. Maybe Don Lemon was right about her. I ain't going to say nothing. But to me, the debate stage, especially with Ron, look, guys, Ron has a charisma problem, right? And yeah, no one can out charisma Trump. I agree. No one can out charisma Trump. But I think what Vivek has is what he lacks in charisma, right? And I think Vivek has some charisma, but Vivek has a lot of convictions, right? He believes a lot of what he's saying here, right? Especially with the woke stuff, how he had to step down from his own company because of his apology to, not apology, but his statement about Black Lives Matter and what was going on with that. I think this man has a lot of conviction, and I think this is why he will do so well in the primary. My belief is it could be Trump and Vivek at the end. That's how confident I feel about Vivek Ramaswamy. Right? I think Ron DeSantis is gonna get, not, I don't want to say exposed, but a lot of people will see how he handles himself in the debate stage, and it can go south for Ron if Ron doesn't, I guess, get better at conveying his message. The messaging problem is not a real messaging problem. It's just he has to get people to be inspired to want to see him run the country, right? Because as a president, and a lot of people made some good points, is that in 2024, the person we're electing for president essentially is going to be a lame duck president. And a lot of the things that made Ron DeSantis special is this fact that he can execute his policies. He has good policies. He knows how to negotiate. But how are you going to negotiate when effectively you're going to be a lame duck president? The Senate's Democrat and the House is Republican. You're going to do a lot of what? Executive orders. So I'm sitting there saying, hey, who's going to inspire people to turn out? Right now, Trump got the advantage here. That's what charisma help you for, right? For the most part, most people who vote in these elections are low information voters. I'm just being honest, guys. And they're not going to be like, oh, look, DeSantis got good policies. No one's going to care about that. They're going to be like, hey, would I go wait 5 hours in the hot ass sun to vote for this guy? That's the difference between who's going to win an election, who's going to lose an election. But I digress. Let's get back into the video.
Why is Thomas Jefferson my favorite president? It's not just because he wrote the Declaration of Independence. And as a startup guy, as a founder, as a company, you guys built companies. I'm big on mission statement. That is the best mission statement for a nation ever written, the Declaration of Independence. But there was also a founding culture to go along with it. Right, he was a polymath. He was, as were many of these guys. Benjamin Franklin, on down. These guys, even John Adams. Not a lot of people know this about him, but he studied Sanskrit later in life. These guys, yeah, he actually, after he left the White House, and these guys, they were also kind of boastful about it. He would put it in his letters to TJ because he knew that posterity would read about it. He says, oh, if I was to do it again, I would have been a Sanskrit scholar rather than, being the U.S. president. Yeah, exactly. But there was a little showmanship there, but there was showmanship grounded in reality. And I kind of love the showmanship too, because it's real in a certain sense. They're proud of it. Yeah. And so Thomas Jefferson, he's writing the Declaration of Independence with his hand, but he realizes that, oh, well, you know what? I don't really like the chair I'm sitting in, so I guess I would love this idea of a swivel chair. It didn't exist before then, so he just made one. He invented it. He invented the swivel chair to write the Declaration of Independence so that he could actually write the great founding document providing the greatest mission statement for not only the United States or a nation, but the free world as we know it. That's missing today. I think we miss the people who look at somebody else's domain and say, hey, that's for somebody else who has expertise over there. Mm-hmm. And I'm not supposed to do that because I'm not trained.
Yeah, I think he's speaking on a bigger point with the college system, right? In the college system, a lot of people have problems with, I guess, generalizing in a bit, right? We don't give as much weight to general intelligence as we do to specialties, right? If someone, let's say Ben Carson, a brain surgeon, smart guy, he runs for politics. People will try to use the fact that he's a doctor to discredit him from being a politician. That's the same critique they give Trump. Oh, Trump's a businessman. What do you know about politics? Well, he seems to be able to do better for the American people than Obama did. Trump had lower black employment than Obama did. Obama said, hey, it was impossible to have I forgot the percentage, but it's impossible to have low black unemployment. You must have a magic wand to be able to do that. And Trump proved them wrong. He said, hey, look, we could do it. You just didn't try hard enough, it seems like. And this is some of the arguments that I like what Vivek sits down. And one of the problems that, and this is the charisma problem I have with Ron DeSantis right now, is that it seems like Ron DeSantis is almost robotic to a fault. Hey, I'm just doing my job. I'm an executor. I'm just gonna sit. Yeah, but when you're trying to sell somebody something, what's better, a crappy salesman with a good product, or a crappy a crappy product with a good salesman? The good salesman win every time, regardless if it's a good product or a bad product. This is how Democrats get elected. They know how to message. They know how to inspire people to vote for them. And I think this is one of the biggest pieces that the Republican Party is missing. And Ron DeSantis kind of represents that old school, old style Republican president, right? Trump is like that new revolutionary style. Hey, be relatable. Hey, inspire your people to vote. Come out and vote for you. Give something the American people can believe in. And this is why I like Vivek so much. Vivek gives me something to believe in. Especially as someone who works in corporate America right now, a lot of things he talked about with his Nation of Victims and Woke Inc., I deal with it every day. When I get my new, because I'm a black guy, disclaimer, I'm a black guy. When I go on my company email and I see, oh, DEI, hey, DEI, hey, get together for DEI. Let's see how inclusive we can make, how to make more inclusive spaces. And I just roll my eyes. I'm like, no, I'm not going to that meeting. Right? This is the stuff day-to-day people deal with in corporate America. And he speaks to that. This is why I think he's going to overperform. A lot of people say, oh, he's going to get out 4th, 5th. Like right now in the polling, I think he's behind Nikki Haley. But that's because Nikki Haley is more known nationally. But I think during the debate stage, you're going to see, in my view, practically the pragmatism in me will say, hey, he may be the third, like top 3. The optimist in me is he's going to be the final 2 because I think he could give Ron DeSantis a run for his money. But hey, I digress.
Versus saying, you know what, I'm a human being. We have free will. No one is born with all the knowledge they need to have to do anything. And if I'm hungry enough, most things I could probably figure it out. And if I feel like doing it, I'm going to do it, whether somebody tells me to or not. That's part of what we're missing, too, is not just the founding principles, but a little bit of that founding culture. And the other reason I like Thomas Jefferson from the standpoint of history is that, as is now all too trite and familiar, I mean, he was a flawed man. He did not live up to his own ideals. He was, in a very real sense of the term, hypocrite. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but not for his slaves. Now, of course, this deserves to be talked.
I like Thomas Jefferson, and that's one of the critiques a lot of people like to bring up whenever I bring up, oh, I like Thomas Jefferson. And all my friends go, hey, wait, didn't he own slaves? Wasn't he a slave owner? And then I have to sit here and be like, yeah, I understand. But look, he wrote this great document called the Constitution, and Martin Luther King referenced the Constitution. So that way it justified freeing the slaves, because essentially Martin Luther King could call America hypocrites because, hey, you're not living up to the values of your Constitution, which it says all men are created equal. Like, I had to go down this whole long-winded, almost apology tour for Thomas Jefferson. And that's one of it's real though. Like, look at the level of conversation Vivek is already having. I don't know if Ron DeSantis can give. I saw his interview with Piers Morgan, Ron DeSantis, and if you compare how Vivek is here, and go put up a video of Ron DeSantis interviews with Piers Morgan, and look how that went. It felt very, I mean, he got a good back and forth, but it felt more scripted than here. Here, you kind of forget he's in an interview. It seemed like you sitting in on somebody, just two guys having a conversation about stuff. And that's the charisma I'm talking about. That's the relatability that I'm talking about. This is where Ron DeSantis need work. Because I bet you if you put 3 politicians in front of the American voter, this politician has 100% charisma but bad policies. The second guy, candidate B, has great policies but no charisma. Candidate C has some charisma, some good policies. Who America's going to vote for? Politician C, because it's both. You can't only meet one side of the criteria and expect to be successful. And that's what Ron DeSantis is right now. He only has good policies, a little bit of charisma. Trump got decent policies, great charisma. He's gonna be DeSantis. So DeSantis, if you want to level up your game, this is what you need to work on. But hey, I digress. Let's get back into it.
About over the last few years, it's been over talked about because that's all anybody can fixate on about an important man's legacy who had much more to him than the worst aspects of his hypocrisies. But he's also a reminder that hypocrisy is only made possible by the existence of ideals. Okay, there's a reason we can't call. Big part of my speech just now was about the CCP. Say what you will about the Chinese Communist Party, you can never call them hypocrites. Because in order to be a hypocrite, you had to have ideals in the first place.
Right.
You can call Thomas Jefferson a hypocrite because he had ideals. And so he's a reminder of not only the existence of ideals, but the fact that we as human beings are flawed, deeply flawed. There will be people 250 years from now that look back at us today and say, weren't they hypocrites? We just don't know what basis they're going to have for saying it, but it's definitely going to happen.
Now, La Rochefoucauld said that hypocrisy is the tribute vice pays to virtue.
That's exactly right. Yep. You said it better than I did. You know,
well, at least
this is why I like Michael Dole's. I wanted to kind of touch on that point where he was talking about, like, for many people always say Republicans are like racist or all this idea, and in my view, this is why the left don't believe in anything. This is why the left they try to keep their positions vague because they don't want to be criticized like that. And even when the left get called hypocrites, oh, you lied here. As long as we won, that's all the Democrats care about. I remember Larry Elder brought up a segment about how a guy lied about Mitt Romney, or I forgot what lie he said about Mitt Romney. And once he won the election, he admitted, yeah, I kind of lied about that. I made it up. I didn't know if he did it for sure or not. And people say, you don't feel bad about lying? He was like, well, did we win? Yeah, you won. Yeah, then I don't. I was like, wow. I need to find that video. Maybe I'll do a video on that next week. But I digress. Let's get back into the video. I just wanted to bring that up because that made me remember. I'm like, yeah, the Democrats don't really the left don't really hold themselves to accountable. The only thing they hold themselves accountable is, did we win or we didn't win? And if you have someone who think like that, the ends justify the means. Hey, as long as I get the end, the means don't matter. Even have to lie to get it. I digress.
Rochefoucauld did.
I don't use speechwriters, but if I did, a few years from now, if I'm successful in the White House, maybe we got to talk.
They've been trying to can me from Daily Wire for years, so that would be a great opportunity.
Just stay employed for another about 2 years, and then January 2025 we'll talk.
Right. So, speaking of these great men and these great writers and thinkers, which book has most influenced your political views?
That's a good question. Most. That's a pretty high bar. I would say Friedrich von Hayek's Constitution of Liberty. I think it's an underappreciated work because people read the summaries of someone like Hayek and then they conflate it with like a Nozick, or they conflate it with just the broader theory of libertarian thought, Austrian economist von Mises. And I love all these guys, but they actually had very different and distinctive views from one another. I think Hayek was a cut above. Hayek was a cut above because his case for, what is in bastardized form referred to as libertarianism. It's so reductionist. I kind of cringe as I even acknowledge that description. But it was really grounded in fundamental human respect, human dignity. And so his view was that, I'm going to distill it to sort of a modern practical form here, but let's just take the arguments about redistribution or whatever. His point would be, look, if the argument for redistribution is grounded in human worth, to say that your human worth is tied to the number of green pieces of paper that sit in your bank account, that's the basis for making sure everyone has the same equal number of green pieces of paper. You've got it backwards because you're actually committing a moral error. You're tying someone's moral worth to their financial worth.
Right.
And that's actually what creates the conditions for rampant mutual disrespect amongst what should be co-equal citizens. And so people miss the fact that his case against unbridled merit and excellence in what we would call free market capitalism today was grounded not in some economic account, which is maybe better tied to Milton Friedman's tradition, but is actually tied to the basic dignity of man itself and the basic dignity of citizens, of nations who are co-equal citizens regardless of the number of green pieces of paper. In some ways, the problem is actually the redistributionists are the ones who also commit the error of fetishizing the accumulation of paper.
Right.
So just in case you guys didn't understand what he was saying, pretty much what he was saying that, hey, we both share the same membership to the same country. We're both Americans. It doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, black, white. Class should not matter. All it should matter is, hey, we're both fighting. We're both on the same ship, right? If you're the captain of the ship, if you're one of the sailors that's helping maintain the ship, you're both respected as being part of the ship, being part of the country, and we shouldn't like assign some hierarchy amongst peers that way, right? He says, hey, this is your responsibility, this is my responsibility, but we're both equal in that sense. It's a kind of a natural law argument, and that's a hard word for me to say. The redistributionists are people who think, hey, this guy has more money than this guy. This guy is better off than this guy. This guy he's poorly unfair. There's the rich versus the poor dynamic. And we have to take money from this guy to equalize everything. And Vivek was referencing the Hayek guy, and he's trying to say, hey, he wasn't making an economic point there. But obviously, if you haven't been noticing for the last, I think, 3 minutes, Vivek is very smart. And I think he's a breath of fresh air for me, especially he's the youngest candidate. And I think that's part of the reason why I like Vivek so much. He's one of the youngest candidates. I think Ron is like 44, 42 years old, if I remember correctly. And I think Vivek is around in his 30s. So he's a very young candidate compared to everyone else on the debate stage. So to me, he feels like a breath of fresh air in a way. But hey, I digress. Enough biased takes from me.
Right.
When in fact, there's more to life. There's more to human worth. There's more to human value than that. And so I thought that was I think what makes some of his work profound, and I think should be more persuasive to more people than you would think.
Speaking of relating to all of our citizens, some of whom we don't always want to relate to, what is one issue on which you could see yourself reaching across the aisle? And what is one issue on which you could probably never see yourself reaching across the aisle?
So I got to say one thing off the gate here, out of the bat. I don't really care about partisan politics that much. Like, partisan politics bores me. So like even this talk of the aisle makes me,
a part of me is like that too. Is that, hey, just give me the information, right? Give me the fact, give me the evidence, and whoever has the best solution for that problem wins. If the Democrat happen to have the best solution for that case, hey, we take it. If they're planning some adjustment, okay. And this is the kind of the reason why Vivek is my ideal candidate, is because I'm not very tribal, right? Like Frederick Douglass say, I side with who's right and I fight against who's wrong, and that's me. And for my case, 80 to 90% of the time, Republicans, they got what they're along the lines of what I think would be the correct solution for the problem. Now, if that rare 10% of the time the Democrats get something and I'll say, hey, that makes sense. That's what politics should be grounded upon. Politics should not be grounded on this tribal game of my guy got to fix it. My guy got to win. It can't be like that. Because when Trump was doing we have the lowest black unemployment in recent history, you saw black Democrats didn't clap their hands because why? Their guy wasn't the one who could brag about that achievement. The other guy could. They saw it as a loss, even though as a black Democrat, you should be clapping. So, oh my God, my people are doing good under him. It becomes, no, he got a win from us. It should have been for us. Our guy should have gotten that win. Politics shouldn't be this way. Politics should be about, hey, we solve a solution for the American people, regardless if it was my solution or the other guy's solution. But hey, it's just a game of optics at this point. And I think that's what America should be focused on. Americans should demand that out of politicians. Hey, we don't want people to just use these wedge issues to run and stay in power. You stay in power if you get things done. I think that's the paradigm shift that America needs to change. And I think that's not going to change until American people demand that out of the politicians. And I think this is one way of doing it. If people like Vivek wins, if people like Vivek wins elections, that creates an incentive for politicians to follow. But I digress.
Recoil a little bit because it's so reductionist. I just don't even think Republican versus Democrat is the most relevant political distinction in America today. I mean, I'm an unapologetic conservative and we can talk about my views, but the Republican Party, I mean, what does that mean? Right? I mean, the Democratic Party, what does that mean? These are relatively incoherent concepts.
Yeah, because end of the day, conservative does not automatically mean Republican. And that's why I think a lot of people fall into, because I'm an independent voter, but I consider myself conservative. But some people will say, Kenny, you're not a real conservative because I'm not a Republican. And I go, what that has to do with anything? You see my values, you see how I live my life. I'm obviously conservative. the things I believe. I'm obviously conservative, but because I don't identify with one party or the other, the party shouldn't matter. And that's my case. The party shouldn't matter. Yes, Republicans have more of the conservatives on their side, but I know there's some conservative Democrats. I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not. There are some conservative Democrats in the Democratic Party. There's some pro-life Democrats that exist in the Democratic Party. You can find them. Now the Democratic Party is starting to weed them out now because obviously they're going in the pro-abortion push right now. They want to be the pro-abortion party, and they can't have anybody in their ranks that is pro-life. I understand that, right? But that's ideological purity, and I don't want that for the Conservative Party. I mean, for the Republican Party. But I digress.
It's sort of designed to shoehorn the real political debates into these sort of artificial categories. I think the real political divide in the modern West, certainly in America, but in the modern West more broadly, is this divide between what I call the Great Reset and the Great Uprising. Right? The Great Uprising is the response to the Great Reset, a view that says you have to dissolve the boundaries between the private sector and the public sector, between nations, between the online world and the offline world, so everybody can work.
Men and women.
Yeah, that's a different dissolution of boundaries, actually, between the genders. It's all about dissolving boundaries so that the leaders of institutions may work together towards the common collective good. That's the vision of the Great Reset. And it's different from the side I'm on, if I had to pick between the two, the Great Uprising, which says hell no to that vision. We, the citizens of nations, in America, the citizen of this nation, as a citizen of this nation, say, we decide in a self-governing democratic republic how we sort out our political differences. That's really the divide, the managerial class versus the everyday citizen. You know, one way I might frame it as well is between those who are unapologetically pro-American and those who are, and I think these exist in America today, those who are fundamentally anti-American, okay? There's a distinction there. The good news is that's an 80-20 divide. It's not a 50-50 divide. So here's what I'll say. If that's the way I draw the aisle, I'm not reaching across the aisle. I'm unapologetically in the pro-American camp, and I'm not making a concession to the anti-American camp.
And this is one of the things I've been not preaching, but that's one of the things I wish that should be a common like standard with all politicians. They should be pro-America. Hey, I'm running because I believe the solutions I have are best for America. Idealistic, I know, but that's why I like Vivek. Vivek has some convictions here. He's saying, hey, I believe 80% of the politicians running are pro-American. And we shouldn't be dictating what 20% of the anti-Americans are saying. And in my view, I think colleges are creating more anti-Americans. And this is a very Marxist view. Hey, we need to destroy America. We need to destroy it. The Great Reset, we need to destroy it and then rebuild it in our image, right? Marxist. It's racist, it's racist, it's racist. All this institution is racist and racist until they come in and take over. Now, once they have control of it, it's not racist anymore. That's what happened with the Democratic Party. We took over the Democratic Party. Okay, it's not racist anymore. Even though they founded the KKK, it don't matter. It don't matter if the KKK used to vote for them. It don't matter. It don't matter if we're still pushing the same policies that the KKK supported back in Jim Crow South days. It don't matter. We took over the Democratic Party. Is no longer racist anymore. Call everyone that disagree with us racist. Call everyone that disagree with us a name. Slandering. It's so simple. These are what the anti-American factions of American politics, that's what they do. They revise history. They tell you up is down, down is south. Man is a woman, woman is a man. Like, the left has that track record. The progressives have that track record already doing that. And I think we need more people, more politicians with some convictions and some beliefs, and not just trying to sit here and stay in power and keep their votes. Like, this is what politics has become now, right? Career politicians. This is why people don't like career politicians. And this is why I think Vivek's going to win, because not win, but why he has a great shot of actually challenging Trump is because a lot of people are going to be like, hey, this Vivek guy reminds us of 2015 Trump. He came in, no one said he had a shot. Then when the debate stage happened, everything changed. I think Vivek can do the same thing. At least be the last man standing against Trump. And that's going to be another interesting dynamic. But I want to kind of get halfway to the video before I get my real thoughts about how I think the GOP primary will go. Let's dive in.
Other than through persuasion to get them to join our camp. There's nothing about me that will cause me to reach across the aisle to the Great Reset. I am on the side of believing that I'm not a citizen of the globe or a citizen of the world. I'm a citizen of a nation, and I'm proud of it. So draw it that way. there's no reaching across the aisles. But Democrat versus Republican, I mean, these things don't even, these are words, they're meaningless. Of course, there are many issues in which I'll bring a lot of Democrats along with me. I mean, I think one of my proposals is to make political expression a civil right in America. Right? To say that if you can't fire somebody or deplatform somebody because they're black or gay or Muslim or white or Hindu or Jewish or whatever, that you shouldn't be able to fire them just because they're an outspoken conservative.
Yes, this is. Remember how I'm tying it back in. Remember how I said, like, in corporate America, a lot of things that I deal with in corporate America, I find it insulting in a way. You know, DI stuff. Oh, you know, we have to be respectful for black people. And, you know, I don't like to be treated like a child. I'm like, yo, like, I'm my own man. Yo, treat me with respect. That's all I care about. I don't need special treatment. I don't need special sympathy. I don't need your fake empathy to make yourself feel better about yourself. Oh, look at me. I'm being nice to a black man. I don't need all that. Right? I just need my respect. All right, and I know if I come out and say, "Hey, look, I'm conservative. I like this. I could put my job at risk, especially with the recession going on right now. I can't risk that. Not a lot of people can risk that." And what he's saying here, it has a very meaningful pull to that. It's very inspiring. Like, imagine how he broke it down. He said, "Hey, like, you shouldn't be prosecuted for your political beliefs. Just like people can't be prosecuted for their gender. Just like people can't be prosecuted for their race. Political expression should be put in the same camp as that. And that will stop all this banning conservatives or banning opinions you don't like. Because at the end of the day, freedom of speech, First Amendment. We're all entitled to that. You shouldn't be doing that to another American. Why? Because he's a Republican or he's a conservative and you're a liberal. So you feel justified in banning him, censoring him, getting him fired for his job because he's an outspoken conservative. That's wrong. Yo, I'm telling you, he's going to kill in the debate stage. If he doesn't, to me, he underperformed. But hey, I digress. I digress, guys.
Right. I guess theoretically it means an outspoken liberal. That's not relevant. The conservative piece is what's relevant because that's what's happening in America.
Nobody gets fired for being
It just doesn't, you know, so it would be silly for me to say, but in principle, you know, I would say the same thing. But why do I bring up that example? Today, a lot of the people who stand up to me are sort of federal Democrats that don't know the first thing about American history, legal history, when they say, oh, no, that would be a bad idea. When they don't know, it's kind of rather embarrassing to them when they find out that actually this protection exists in a good number of states, including and especially blue states that actually passed this protection during like the Bush era in California, for example, because they were fearful of the expansive, you know, military state under Bush and Dick Cheney, that they were going to suppress people who wanted to stand up to the post 9/11, you know, expansive state. Well, they said, no, we need to give space to those people to have those protections from getting fired. And so it sort of proves that isn't a Republican or Democratic issue, but it's just, you know, an example of the kind of thing that I'm in favor of. One of my, you know, I wouldn't call it a signature policy. I just view it as a simple, it's on the list, right?
I'm sure it would have a lot of support.
Yeah, that one. But I was about to say a different one, which is, you know, look, I think that if you can't smoke an addictive cigarette by the age of 18, if you can't have an addictive sip of alcohol by the age of 21, I don't think you should be using an addictive social media product like TikTok before the age of 15 either. That's not a partisan point. It's not a Republican point. It's not a Democratic point. I think it makes sense. You know, even principled libertarians, God love them, but kids aren't the same as adults. I think everyone acknowledges that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to.
So, and there go the parents. Now Vivek got the parents' ear. Oh, what? You want to make age-appropriate guidelines for certain products? Hey, social media is known to cause mental health issues to kids, to minors, right? Women, especially, girls are most affected on social media. If you look who spend more time on social media, it's women, overwhelmingly women, young girls. Depression, self-esteem issues, right? Even transgenderism is even like young girls are even considering transitioning more than young men at around the age she's talking about because of the influence of social media. Hey, if someone is that impressionable, we don't think we shouldn't allow them to have access to that. You know, back in the day when they say, hey, you have to be 15 years old to use this app, and then everyone has to lie on their thing. Now, there's a certain, you know, part of me is a little bit libertarian. I'm like, hey, I don't want to have to give an ID to prove that I'm not 15 because, you know, companies can be tracking that. That's my only issue with that, how Vivek would work that out. But if you give me a good reason, I'll be like, okay, yeah. You if you don't have a driver's license, that means you're too young to be on this app. Simple. I'm saying like he has some good policies there. And even if he don't win, he pushes a lot of the two front runners everyone agrees on, right? The Ron DeSantis and Trump. He pushes them to adopt more of this stuff, especially if it's getting some notoriety, especially if it's getting some traction. They're like, hey, the conservative base seems to like these policies that Vivek is saying. Let me adopt some of that too, or let me give my take or my policy for that problem that he's pointing out in the debate stage, so I can stay competitive. And this is what a lot of people who run for presidents, they do. They see, damn, the top candidates are not talking about issues I care about. Let me join in a race, get them talking about my stuff, because they'll have to compete with me on the debate stage. But yeah, I digress. Let's get back
to sort of my policy perspectives that, transcend the traditional partisan boundaries or whatever. Call that reaching across the aisle, but I don't even pay much heed to the traditional partisan
Which aisle? Yeah.
I'm not a politician. This stuff is silly to me. I'm an unapologetic, America first, conservative, will not apologize for it, but I think that just reciting those slogans means very little until you first rediscover what America is.
I love the idea of banning. You've got at least one supporter for this proposal of banning social media for kids. I think, I love cigars. I'm not a cigarette fan, but I love cigars. And some people say it's a vice. Well, at least that vice sharpens your mind a little. Yeah. Social media, especially if you're a kid, it melts your brain.
Oh,
it comes out your ears.
It's designed to melt your brain because it's picking at insecurities. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg's core insight, he was a year ahead of me when I was in college, and Facebook was invented, if we're to call it that, while I was in college.
It's an addiction, bro. And I forgot his name, Jonathan Haidt, I think the researcher name. He has a book called Anti-Fragile, and he talks about how the rise of censorship, the rise of this fragile culture that comes on. You could see it correlating to the rise of when Facebook came out, when Twitter would become popular. You see it all the time, right? But hey, I'm giving my little clip here. I want to kind of get at least 40 minutes of video in at least, but I'll continue, but I'll give it.
It's designed to prey on your insecurities, right? Yeah. I mean, you're going to click on this versus this faster, gives you a window into your soul deeper than you have into your own soul.
Yeah.
And so that's what it's about. So we can have that debate about what that means for the loss of virtue amongst adults that lends us vulnerable to this kind of algorithmic
addiction,
call it exploitation and manipulation. But adults are adults. It's their job to fortify themselves.
And this is me making a hey America, it's on you point here, is that I think a lot of parents they don't have to wait for politicians to make legislation to restrict this or force businesses to take into account their children. They should take into account their children. My kids, they're not touching social media until about 15, maybe 14, middle school, until I believe they're mentally ready to handle that stuff. I'm not letting my kids nowhere near social media. And if they have to, it's with my supervision. It's with a shared device. They ain't gonna have their own personal device. I don't even think my kids gonna have smartphones until they're at least in middle school. I'm gonna give them dumb phones like, a Nokia that's harder than concrete. I'll probably give them that. Because it's on us as parents, because I believe in personal responsibility. It's my responsibility to take care of my kid. If the world is saying, hey, social media, let your kid on social media at 7 years old, getting exposed to all this stuff, especially on TikTok, they get a Dylan Mulvaney. Not me. Hey, look, you ain't gonna have no phone. Because at the end of the day, the kid can't have access to it if you don't provide it, parents. Like I said, if you're responsible for something, you have authority over it. If your kid has a phone, it's because you were responsible for buying it. So therefore, you have the responsibility to take it away or deny access to it. This is what I'm talking about. You don't wait for a politician to do stuff for you. Be your own savior, right? That's why I said, don't wait for saviors. Now, if you want society, we want to know what's best for society. And that's what kind of makes me a conservative, because conservatives care about society. Why? Because conservatives have a shared loyalty to the country. And if you're a part of the same, if you're an American, don't care if you're white, Asian, I don't care about your race. Hey, you're a citizen, you're a legal immigrant, naturalized citizen, I don't care. Okay, you care about America just as much as I care about America. We're the same team. That's how I like to think about these issues. But the Democrats, they want you to think of on a form of race, things that you can't control. You couldn't control if you were born a woman. You can't control if you were born black. But you can't control whether you want to be an American or not. Because at any moment, you could revoke your citizenships and say, hey, I'm not an American anymore. And that's what I put more weight on that. If you care about America, just like I do, hey, we should care about, okay, what's best for America? How can we make this a better country for our kids, for the future? And this is why you elect someone like Vivek to restrict social media. Because you say, hey, social media does a lot of harm to our youth. And we don't want that in America. I think that's what politics need to be about. It needs about how can this help America? Give us your pitch for why your solutions help America. How does it make America a better place? And that's a very pro-American stance. And I like how Vivek has it. Hey, it's not about parties. A lot of moderates, I believe he has a lot of moderates' ears right now. He don't consider a Democrat like separate aisles. He just see, hey, we're all American here. The only people he consider across the aisle are the globalists. That's a very populist message. And I don't know, man. I'm telling you, that debate stage is going to be crazy.
Selves in the offline world, that's a whole separate and deep discussion. But for kids, by definition, you haven't formed that moral or psychic foundation. And there's a reason why China doesn't allow the version of sexualized dance videos or whatever that exist on TikTok here. Over there, it's about math and engineering. In the Chinese version, ByteDance operated version of their product over there, it's like, they send fentanyl across our southern border in Mexico effectively through cheap raw materials that they sell to the cartels. This is digital fentanyl. If I had to take the analogy further, it's financial fentanyl in the form of national debt, but that's a whole separate discussion of our broader addiction to China. But bringing me back, even China, actually, I'll go there too. I don't think that has to be a partisan point. I think that recognizing that the CCP is the single greatest threat that America faces over the next 30 years, that ought to be a point of bipartisan consensus.
Exactly. And this is why I say, hey, American voters, we need to demand our politicians to say, hey, who you about? You about yourself or you about America? Okay, even if you're about yourself, make sure the incentive structure is making them, hey, I gotta do what's best for America if I want to stay in power. Because at the end of the day, we're the shareholders of this country. If you want to think of America as a company, we're the shareholders. And the politician has a fiduciary duty to abide by what's best for us. But if we don't demand that out of the shareholder, out of the CEO, aka the president, the representatives, congressmen, politicians, they're gonna be okay. Let's screw around. Let's enrich our own pockets. Let's line our own pockets. Let's do corrupt deals. Let's turn a blind eye to China because they're paying me money in the back. Biden, because at the end of the day, if you're about America, you're like, we want to stay on the top of the power because we believe, hey, the world's a better place when America's number one. If you let China become number one, if you let China, Russia, and all them, India, China, Russia, they conglomerate together, make a new world order, and they dominate the world, it hurts us personally on a personal level. And what about the globe? Is the world better that America's number one or worse? If we believe it's better, even if you're a liberal, even if you are the biggest lefty in history, wouldn't you want America to be number one so that way you can push your LGBTQ stuff on other countries to adopt them to be more tolerant towards LGBTQ people? Yes, okay, you have a vested interest in keeping America number one. And what policies you're doing, printing more money, wasteful spending, sicking the IRS on the average people with 85 million IRS, wasteful spending. It's hurting the country. So you're cutting your nose to spite your face. The better policy, hey, go with the Republicans on this. That's what happens idealistically, if we lived in a country where both parties was about America. Both parties was about, hey, we just have different visions of how we make America better. But one thing we do share in common, America has to be number one. And we'll do things to make sure America stays in that position of power. But we don't have that. A lot of politicians have their own interest. And that's my problem. This is why I said, hey, I know the conservative base. I've been looking at it. I've been researching it. We don't like anti-establishment people. Vivek's anti-establishment. He's not a career politician. That's the one thing I think the DeSantis folks, the DeSantis supporters, don't want to admit, that Ron DeSantis comes across as a career politician. And no career politician, in my view, can go to Trump and be like, you're establishment, Trump. That's wishful thinking. Trump is going to be like, I was a businessman. I made it in the private sector. Ron, what job you had? Oh, you was a lawyer for the army? Okay. But after that, you was a congressman. You was a governor. Now you're trying to run to be a president. Does that sound like a career politician to you? And you lose. But hey, I digress. I'm talking too much now.
It isn't. I think that we need conservatives who are able to, in greater detail, make the case for that to the American people. Make the case because there's going to be some sacrifices in weaning off of China.
Cheap goods.
Yeah, we got addicted to cheap stuff. It's a form of addiction. We get addicted to everything, from the fentanyl to the digital fentanyl to the cheap stuff.
Exactly.
But we can make these sacrifices if we know what we're sacrificing for.
Yeah.
It's this thing we call America. It's make sure our children and grandchildren aren't a bunch of Chinese serfs that are somehow citizens of some sort of co-equal bilateral global governing equilibrium created between the United States and China, which is what China hopes for. No, they should be the citizens of the greatest nation on earth. But that requires some short-run sacrifice.
Yep.
I think America could use, bluntly, a little less Chamberlain and a little more Churchill.
That's one point that what Vivek is mentioning here is that as Americans, and I'll put myself into it, we all, like, America as a whole, we got too comfortable letting things be the way it is, right? It's willful ignorance, right? Rational ignorance. Oh, everything's going fine. My guy's in office, but your guy could be just as corrupt as Biden, right? We all, like Mitt Romney, what's his name? I forgot his name. The Graham guy, right? Kevin McCarthy. You saw Kevin McCarthy. That boy was, when he couldn't get his speakership, you saw how heated he got. I was like, damn, what's this energy when you need to push conservative policy? Now he know there's some fire up his butt. Now he acting right. He finally standing up. But it took the American people. It took a few of the candidates that American people back up behind, the American first candidates, to push McCarthy to do that stuff. That's the incentive you need. So, hey, look, I'm telling you, Vivek gives me 2015 Trump vibes. And because at the end of the day, this is what a lot of political pundits like Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, this is what they miss. They miss the fact that as much as we pretend, like I could pretend that I'm logical, I'm reasonable, I got great analytical skills, I'm still a human being. And human beings are what? We're thinking creatures and we're feeling creatures. If someone doesn't make us feel like, he has a shot. Oh, well, he's really genuine about this. He has conviction. He really believes what he's saying. This is my problem with DeSantis. When he opened his mouth, it feels like he's reading off a script. Memorized lines, right? What was that? I forgot the guy's name that lost in 2015. Chris Christie? I forgot his name. Damn, I forgot his name. He's a fat guy. Michael Knowles liked to make fun of him. I think his name was Chris Christie, but I'm not sure. Everyone's like, oh, there goes that rehearsed line again. That's how Ron DeSantis come off to me. It feels like everything that comes out of his mouth, he doesn't really believe what he's saying. Vivek does, though. And Vivek knowledgeable, too. He knows. He's willing to, like, all you have to do is look at Vivek's interviews. Man, I digress, man. I don't know, man. Because a lot of people are not talking about Vivek. I mentioned Vivek, like, with Vince Dow and stuff, and he's like, yeah, he's going for a VP. I'm like, bruh, I don't think he's going for a VP. I think he's trying to be president. And I think even if he lose going down swinging, at least he'd be like, hey, I'm humble enough to take a consolation prize because I need these agendas pushed in politics. Because to me, Vivek seems to me, I'll start going back to the video after this point. Vivek seems like the type of person to be like, hey, I'm striving for president. But if I lose president, the most important thing about me is at least my policies get taken up by the winner, by the guy. So if Trump's like, hey, I like all your policies, I'm going to take all your policies, Vivek's going to go, yeah, go right ahead. These needs to be in Vivek comes across as that kind of person. Regardless if it's him doing it or Trump doing it, as long as someone take up those positions that he brought up in the debate stage, he will be happy. That's the kind of person Vivek comes off across me. And that comes off very genuine. That's why he has my support. Until he drops out, Vivek's my guy. And I'm going to stick to him. But I digress. Bias take, disclaimer.
And I think that's a big part of the premise for my candidacy is to deliver that kind of vision.
Speaking of China,
Yep.
President Ramaswamy gets the call, China has invaded Taiwan. What do you do?
So invaded is what we're talking about here, not blockade, right?
I like Michael Knowles. I feel like Michael Knowles gives great questions because that's a very likely thing to happen. To me, I think that invasion of Taiwan is going to happen before another president comes in. But hey, we never know. Like, end of the day, we're all speculating here. I digress.
Either.
Yeah. So, because I think the scenarios are basically different. I do think that we have to.
Vivek. I know. I like to say Vivek because it's easier for me to say very fast. But yeah, I'll try to say Vivek. I'll try to say it correctly. Thank you, the real tech.
Vigorously protect Taiwan. I don't like enmeshing ourselves in foreign wars that don't matter. I'm on that side of the Ukraine issue. I think we have overspent, and it's a lesson we ought to learn for a long time to come. I'd take a fraction of that money and protect our own southern border. But the reason Taiwan matters is that, unfortunately, our modern way of life depends on it. I mean, the semiconductor chips that power our phones, the semiconductor chips that power our refrigerators that kept this water cold before we're drinking it, All of that comes from this tiny little island nation off the southeast coast of China. And it is a shame that we ever got here, but we are where we are. And so if China holds the keys to Taiwan, that's the final step in the long-run bargain they've always wanted to reach with the United States.
Yep, that's all part of China. We fell right hook, line, and sinker because, I'm going to be blunt, America, we got lazy. We stopped trying to be producers, and we end up being consumers. And now we're stuck in it. Now in the long term, it bites us in the butt now, because now we're not in charge of our own manufacturing. A lot of our goods and services are done by countries outside of us, and this is the case against globalism. If you can't do for yourself, you can't rely. Like, you can't be independent. You can't be an independent sovereign nation if most of your goods and services are done outside. Now, capitalism is like, hey, you know, we both win. No, trade is good in a capitalist society. I agree. But we need to have some infrastructure where we can produce our own goods and services. We may not have, like, let's say 20% of our goods and services came from our country. That's fine, right? We don't have to rely only on our country. We can rely on other people to make competition is good. But in the case where political leverage is being weighed on the U.S. with China, for instance, China's like, haha, no more produce for you, and you go, damn. Now you have to come to the negotiating table, and they have all the leverage. A nation, a respectable nation, a powerful nation cannot let that happen. They cannot be at the whims or mercy at another nation. Taiwan, now look at us. Oh, now Biden passed legislation recently, a long time ago, the Microchip Act, to now begin trying to manufacture microchips. That's too reactionary. We need to be more proactive about this stuff. And some people might call it protectionism, but hey, sometimes, within means, within nuance, protectionism is good. This is one of the cases. Hey, keep our manufacturing here. Trump saying that. Vivek's alluding to that, I believe. But hey, let's let him finish his thought. I don't want to speak for the man.
The final coup they wanted to achieve in the 50-year game that they played with Henry Kissinger and won without our knowing it, which is to say that there's a grand bargain. We get your intellectual property, and we'll make your stuff. That's what China's saying to the U.S.
And China did that to Elon too. When he made his mega factory in China, they let him make his mega factory, and then he brought competition to the Chinese market, and then the Chinese manufacturers got better. And once the Chinese product was comparable quality to the Tesla product, he turned on Elon and is like, oh yeah, we're gonna shut down your factory. It didn't pass inspection. It didn't do all this. China's known to do this. You can say a lot about China, but they care about their country. And I think America needs to care about its country too. I'm just saying.
So if the U.S. right now, I mean, we have no reason to accept that bargain. It would be foolish, right? Because we can source the stuff from somewhere else, right? So we have that leverage going for us. However, once China's squatting on Taiwan, they can really squeeze the leverage out of that negotiation, and then it's a permanent bipolar new status quo. Now, here's where I'm at. I don't think they're quite yet ready to invade Taiwan. I don't think they will be ready to invade by the time I take office, should I succeed in January 2025. And I think there's things we can do that can pull the economic rug out from under China to effectively defeat them. I say defeat them in the sense that the fall of the CCP may not be as far away as people think. Xi Jinping actually did a lot of damage to China over the last year as part of his quest to hold on to power. I think there's actually an interesting window here that we might be working within that, just like we found out Putin's military capacity was sort of an emperor has no clothes situation, not so much for Chinese military capacity, but even for Chinese economic capacity. And remember, the grand bargain between the CCP and the people is, at least you take care of our material way of life and we'll cede our freedoms to you. But that doesn't work if they're no longer supporting the material way of life. And so I would go so far as to ban most U.S. businesses from doing business in China unless and until the CCP either falls or reforms its behaviors. Isn't
that Trump? That's tariffs for Trump, right? This is why Trump did so well in foreign policy. To me, no Democratic president is willing to go that far. Because in my view, they're not Team America. They're Team themselves. Whatever benefits themselves. If Ukraine is giving them money, they're like, okay, we'll give you the $1 million. China, here you go. We're going to give you beneficial tariffs. Here's a trade deal. We get none of the benefit, but you get all the benefit, but I personally gain from it. We don't need politicians like that. This is where we want to drain the swamp. Now, the biggest thing going for Trump right now is this is going to be his final term. He don't need to worry about re-election. He can come in and be demolition man, just destroy. That's the attention people want. People want Trump to be in there and be like, yo, you're the reset button, Trump. Do what you need to do. Go get your revenge. The American people and Trump, their interests align on that. Hey, go get your revenge, Trump, because the product of your revenge is the deep state is you fire all the bureaucrats through executive order. That's what people want. That's what people want to see. People want to see you're fired. That's what people want. And I think Ben Shapiro and more of the logical people, they misunderstand that vindication that people want to see. They want to see that in the bureaucratic state. They want to see the government shrink. They want to see some accountability. Because I think American people feel like they've been beat up so damn much that they were like, yo, it's time these people get retribution. These people should be in jail, but hey, I'll take them being fired. That's what people want. This is what people are channeling through Trump. That's very hard to beat. That's why Trump is like, what, a 30% lead against everyone else, Ron included. That's why. And I think if you want to beat Trump, you gotta bring something similar. You gotta get people amped up and emotionally feel you. And I think Ron don't have it. Now, I don't want to hear on the replay. I don't want to see nothing on the replay. Toby, you're making me laugh. I don't want to see on the replay people commenting, "Oh, you just hate on the DeSantis," because it seems like if you criticize DeSantis, everybody and their mama come out and tell you, "Oh, you're a cultist or something. Oh, you're a Vivek cultist. Oh, you're a Trump guy. You're a Trump guy." Oh, like no, it's a critique, bro. Challenge, like, can you make people inspired to vote for you? That is my question. Because everyone agree turnout will decide the election. And right now, Trump got pedigree. Trump can go on the debate stage and say, "Hey, I am the most popular GOP president in history." No one else, bro. Who gonna challenge him for that? I mean, I digress.
Now, that'll hurt us a little bit. It'll hurt them more. I think our willingness to make that sacrifice, it's not a small sacrifice, probably is the single greatest lever to make sure that we never have to make it. You got to think about this stuff. It's not static. And so for me, I think that also semiconductor capacity here at home is rising too, so then that gap is going to close. We do have this little divest to invest thing going on in the U.S. Navy. You familiar with this or not?
No.
So it's a long story, but we have a divest to invest program where we're decommissioning ships in the South Pacific. And so our nadir of military capacity in the South Pacific, China's already got more ships in its Navy than we do, but our nadir really is kind of going to be in the 2026, 2027 timeframe. So Xi Jinping's not quite ready yet, so I think that's what he's playing for. So I think the window between January 2025, when if I'm successful and I take office, and in mid-2026 or 2027, that's the window where we got to pull the economic rug out from under China, declare independence from China, decouple. But actually, I think the way it's going to play out is that guts the economic fortitude of the CCP. They lose their mandate in China itself.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the business that China has is from America. And if America start becoming a producer again instead of just being a consumer, yeah, you take the wind out of China's sails. And you see how strategic politics can become, because if America is not, and this is the problem, rational ignorance, right? America is not in a lot of Americans' best interest personally to be politically informed about foreign policy and how, hey, we put a Democrat in office during this time window, Xi Jinping can come in and start a war with Taiwan because the Democrats are very lenient on them. While if we had a Republican president, they'll be like, damn, we can't do nothing. Let's fall back. Let's play nice. Because we don't want a Trump to tariff us to death. You see the reaction based on who you put in office. But people, look, I'm being honest. Like a lot of Americans are not informed voters. So that's where the charisma comes in. I'm sorry, I keep bringing up charisma. I won't bring it up no more. I'm just saying.
And we actually are in a very different situation that we should have been and start to get back on the right track that we would have been on had the decisions not been made in 1970s to totally couple with China.
Well,
I know that's long and complicated, but hopefully some of that made sense.
It's a good answer. And you've partially answered my next question, which is on trade. The Republican Party, founded on protectionism and tariffs, then for much of the 20th century, certainly the second part of the 20th century, the Republican Party is the party of free trade. Now the Republican Party doesn't quite know what it is.
TBD, right?
TBD, so trade under...
So I'm not a protectionist.
Okay.
But vis-a-vis China, the reason I adopt policies that align with those advanced by protectionists is for national security reasons, right? Because I think that this is about China is operating according to mercantilist rules, deputizing capitalism, I use capitalism in air quotes, to advance their geopolitical end of achieving long-run even military parity with the United States. In China, economic policy and military policy are two sides of the same coin. We in the West, in the United States in particular, adopt a dualist view, that military policy is over here and economic policy is over here. But that was what China exploited. That was the whole wedge they exploited because they view them as part and parcel of the same. And you know what? Got to give it to somebody when they win. They won that game. Henry Kissinger was wrong. China was right. But I think that that's with respect to China. And I don't think that we should conflate that with coddling American workers who don't need coddling. Now, I think we also got to look at a couple other dimensions here. One is the dollar as the U.S. reserve, as the reserve currency of the world. The U.S.
Yo, this interview was made like 2 months ago. And some of the stuff he's talking about is so relevant today. Like, we have the debt ceiling coming up. And that could put a dent in us being the number one reserve, like the reserve currency right now, because of this mess, right? And I'm gonna let him finish because I want to hear because I saw this video a long time ago, and I think this is one of his best interviews, and I want to bring more attention to it. Obviously, this is why I'm reacting to it and give my little biased take about it. I admit, right? But at least I'm honest. And I give you my reasons, right? I'm gonna sit here and just say, "Trust me, bro." No, I give my reasons. I digress. Let me stop playing.
US dollar being the reserve currency. I think it's a good thing. However, that does create some distributive consequences here at home, right? So what does the dollar as reserve currency means? It means there's an extra bid for the dollar above and beyond what would have existed under free market conditions where the dollar was not the reserve currency. Why do we want the dollar as a reserve currency? We then control the financial system.
Yep.
We can freeze a terrorist's assets on demand, whatever.
Yep.
That's a good thing for America, but what does that mean? It means, on average, that tilts the scales of U.S. exports costing more to other countries and U.S. imports costing less. So
So it makes it easier for us to sit back on our lazy fat behind and be like, okay, yeah, y'all all produce for us and we just consume. And that's how we fall into this track record of not producing for ourselves. This is how we let manufacturing go to other countries. Like, if you're pro-America, you'll be like, yo, our manufacturing should be done. Like, we should be seeing more made in America than made in China. This is how we get into can you find a product that's not saying made in China? Let me see. I have this water bottle in my hand. Let's see if I can find it. I don't want to waste time on the stream. Oh, yeah, I can't find it. But the point is, can you find something that's not made in China? You can't. Because we sat down, like we just been sitting down, expecting the world to be like, yeah, here. Because we're the world reserve currency, right? And I think it was a miscalculation on Biden's part to exclude Russia immediately by, we disassociated all Western banks from Russia. And Russia's economy tanked, but then Russia's economy came back and be like, hey, Russia's like, I lived. You hit me with your last bullet. Now what? Now you have to escalate with nuclear fireware to make me concede. You hit me with your best shot. You try to hit me financially. I was able to survive because I had China behind me. And then China and Russia got this idea, hey, we should create our own order. We should try to make our own reserve currency, which is what they're trying to do now. Foreign policy, man. It's so interesting, but I digress.
Systematically does disfavor U.S. manufacturers. So I think there's some areas where we have to not be willfully blind to distributive consequences we create at home from policies that are still good for the nation as a whole.
And therefore
be mindful of that.
Implement other policies to balance them?
To negate, to make sure that anything that's protecting the nation as a whole, that we don't abandon the dollar as the reserve currency of the world, but say that we're in that together.
I think American voters specifically, they need to know what their goal is. Are we for what's best for America, or are we for what's best for the world? If we're for what's best for America, then our politicians should have their solutions and policies guided towards what's best for America. Not themselves, not the global, democracy everywhere. No, we don't need that. No. Protect our sovereign country. That's it. That's all I'm saying. And if that's the focus, and it's pretty easy who you vote for. Okay, politician B or A, are you for this or are you for that? If both of them not for it, say, damn, I need to find another candidate. That's it. Right? And I'm not even telling you vote along party. No. Vote along who's for America, who's not. Because if they're for America, they're for you. Because if America succeeds, you succeed. That's how I frame it. But this is why the Democrats get you thinking about race. Oh, you're a woman, you're this. You guys are enemies. Vote for us because we're for you. This is why they divide and conquer us like that. A people who is not united, divided, they'll fall, right? This is divide and conquer all over again. So I'm trying to preach a more unifying message. Hey, we're all Americans here. We all are here. If you don't want to be American, hey, revoke your citizenship, go somewhere else where you feel welcome. But if you're for America, you want the best for America, you think America could be a better place, hey, Vivek's your guy. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm preaching.
And that we're not just purposefully blind to the consequences of who's left holding the bag as a consequence. So I think we got to be in that together. But I think that is at the margin, right? And so I think that some of this case for industrial policy bleeds into, and even takes support from people like me, because I'm coming at it from a very different angle vis-a-vis China, to marshal support for what could easily devolve into a form of really economic laziness. I do think that U.S. competitiveness is in part created by having our feet held to the fire and being the best on the planet. Means that we're actually doing it because we're the best on the planet. And so vis-a-vis China, what does decoupling from China means? It's not going to all be reshoring into the United States, although it will involve some of that. But it'll also involve looking at, Southeast Asia, India, South America. And I think that it's got to be a all of the above approach, because the real objective is economic independence from an enemy. And I use the word enemy intentionally here vis-a-vis communist China. But I think that that's something that we can do in a more focused way with respect to China.
Valid point, right? Hey, we don't need to be protectionists in general, but if someone's a rival to us, right? It's like let's say you're a Lakers fan, but there's a Boston, like, you don't do things that's in the benefit of Boston. You do what's benefit of Lakers fan. This is the same thing here. Hey, this country's kind of close to us. Let's be a little protectionist against them. Let's be open trade with these companies over here, or these nations or allies. But non-allies, yeah, take a more protectionist stance. I agree. Nuanced take. Yo, I'm telling you, this debate stage about to be crazy.
So we're talking about the free flow of goods and services. How about the flow of people? On immigration, assuming that you are opposed to illegal immigration and would like to stop that, then there are some other questions. The question is what to do with the people already here. Does one provide a path to citizenship, say, for the illegal aliens who are currently in the country? And then further, polls have suggested that many, many Americans want to reduce not just illegal immigration, but legal immigration as well.
Hot take, but immigration actually hurts black people and minorities the most. I said what I said.
So when it comes to legal immigration, would President Ramaswamy restrict it, expand it, or keep it about the same?
So on illegal immigration, I'm a hardliner. I believe in the use of the U.S. military to protect our border. It's a shame that that's a controversial idea, that using our military to protect our border is actually the most controversial use of our military, when in fact using it to protect somebody else's border is somehow perfectly fine.
Yep.
So I'm what you would call a hardliner on the issue of illegal immigration.
I agree. My parents came here legally, right? Haitian immigrants, they went through the right way. They didn't break no laws. They waited. I think my mom waited 15 years to finally be approved to come to the U.S. Right? And people who illegally immigrant, they jumped the line. They cut the line. How you feel entitled to a country enough to break the law to get into the country? That don't make no sense to me, right? And we shouldn't be rewarding bad behavior, right? Like a father, right? I'm a father. If my son does something wrong, I won't reward his bad behavior because he really had to do it. He really had to steal from this kid because he really wanted the cake. No, that's not your cake, son. You don't touch it. Here, timeout. Here, a punishment. That's what we should do to illegal immigrants. Hey, you came here illegally. We got to ship you off and then apply to the proper channels. But because you broke the law, when you apply to proper channels, you have a longer wait time than normal because you broke the law, right? We gotta make them suffer a penalty. But if you're like Joe Biden, just come over the border, and you're surprised that you get 90,000 immigrants a day, hey, you made your bed laying it. Now you have to deal with them. Now New York getting shipped immigrants, and they're like, we don't have the resources to handle them all. Yo, America don't have the resources to handle them all. But hey, you want us to keep bringing them in? What's the point of bringing people into this country if we don't have the means to actually properly support them or give them the means to actually help them make a living in this country? I don't understand the logic there. You're setting these people up to fail, but I think that's what Democrats want, because at the end of the day, to me, Democrats want power. Hey, will help us stay in power. Hey, if we have these immigrants come here, they'll be dependent on the government because there's not a lot of opportunities for them. Low skill work, not a lot, and low skill work generally doesn't give you a good standard of living here in the U.S. Government dependence, and government dependence equals what? Democratic voters, conflict of interest. And I think Republicans need to be better about exposing that conflict of interest to the American people in general. But I digress.
On legal immigration, I think that we've gotten it wrong. We have a policy of accidental immigration when I think we should have a policy of intentional immigration. We have lottery systems for H-1B visas. I mean, this makes no sense. Why on earth would you want to leave it to a lottery when you could actually just pick the best ones to actually come? Best ones as measured by commitment to the country, likelihood of making contribution to the country.
Make it more so the immigrant themselves can control the outcome of their immigration. Not be like this lottery system. Like I said, my mom waited 15 years to finally be like, oh, I can finally go to the U.S. And then she met my father here, and then a legend was born, right? But I agree with that. Like, because end of the day, I'm tired of them, like, both parties do this. I'm tired of them using wedge issues to galvanize voters for them to stay in power. I want someone to actually solve these problems. That's what we should be rewarding. We should change the incentive structure. But remember, politicians are representatives. They're not leaders. Some can be, but not most of them are not. And you have to create an incentive to make them be solutions. Oh, here's a solution. Here's what I solved. Not here's what I done. Because sometimes what they done, they didn't do anything. It was just frailing. I signed the Inflation Reduction Act. Did inflation reduced? Yes, it reduced, but it's still at an all-time high. Did you really do anything? But look, I did something. No, we shouldn't be rewarding politicians, but we should be like, hey, what problems did you solve? What steps did you take to try to solve this issue that's going on in America? How did you serving in office made my district, my state better? That's some questions I think America should start demanding out of their politicians. That's just my take. A little bit idealistic, but there's a reason why we strive for ideals. Because that's the standard we want to hold everyone to. That's all I'm trying to say.
Based on their track record and even their educational and economic position in a different country. So I believe in meritocratic, points-based immigration.
Now, I've heard that answer before.
Okay.
Say someone is skilled at some job, and so the company says, we really need this person, and that's it.
Here's an example. Dubai does that. Like I was just messing around. Dubai was like, hey, we're looking for engineers, and we'll give you a H1 visa. I was like, damn. Oh, you can go to Dubai. People can travel to Dubai if they're engineers. We need to start doing that here in the U.S. I'm just saying, just a thought. Just a thought that came up in my head hearing Vivek talk. But this is the kind of conversation that I want the GOP to talk about. I want the GOP to be the party of solutions, the party of problem solvers. GOP got a chance here. GOP has a chance to be the party for the parents, the party of school choice, the party about, hey, we make things better in America. That's a chance they got. But hey, look, end of the day, the American voters will decide who wins. And whoever the American voters decide who wins, it'll set a trend long before we're here, long after we're here. This is why I kind of want the Trump-Biden rematch, because I want to know, did America learn? Did the silent majority learn? You don't do things based on feelings. Oh, we just want everything to return to normal. I think that's why a lot of moderate voters went Biden. They wanted a return to normal, whatever the hell that means. Return to just what? Return to normal? Return to career politicians? Return to do nothing politicians? That's return to normal? They doing things in the dark? You don't know nothing? Vivek, I know. I keep messing it up. I know. I'll get it right. Ramaswamy, I'll take the safe bet. But hey, I digress, man.
But you said something very interesting. You said commitment to the country, which would not presumably just be quantifiable.
Civic commitment.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think there's this step later on of, first of all, I think we need to bolster the citizenship tests in this country. Not just knowledge, but even enthusiasm, commitment. I think at best, a lot of people grow up and are born as citizens just because they inherit their citizenship and they don't know the first thing about what it means to be an American. Well, a lot of immigrants come to the country today and they're every bit as bad what they don't really know either. No, I think it's got to be somebody who pledges allegiance to that flag and understands the history behind it, understands how we got to where we are, understands what makes America great, and then wants to be a part of it. And so I'm big on this idea of revival of citizenship. And I what I'm about to say, I say jokingly.
My mom made a joke to me one time. She's like, oh, me being a naturalized citizen, when she went to go get her citizenship, she said, I think I know more about the country than you do. And I said, no, you don't, Mom. And then she proved me wrong. I was like, oh, did you know this? I said, oh, I didn't know. Well, when was the United States founded, son? I couldn't give her the answer. And I was like, damn, That was me about, I forgot when my mom got naturalized. The first vote my mom did was for George Bush, I believe, 2004, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So I was about like, what, 10 years? No, not 10 years old. 9 years old. Couldn't answer that question. Some credence to what he's saying. A lot of people are voting. They don't know the first thing about this country. And I find that baffling. Immigrants, naturalized immigrants, know more about this country than Americans that have been born multi-generations in this country. Sad to say. That won't happen to my son, though.
Okay. It's not a policy that I think we can actually implement. So these are risky things to say as a political candidate, but I don't care because it's just the kind of thing we ought to talk about openly.
You think Ron will do that? You think Ron will risk being seen as, oh, this is a politically risky thing? Oh, that's very safe. Ron's a very safe guy. Safe bet. I know a lot of people who like safe, but the Republicans been relying on safe for too long. And I think this is how they got to the position they are at right now, to the point where Trump had to win to bring new life into the party. And instead of doubling down and saying, hey, how can we kind of recreate this energy, but in a different way? No, let's go back to tried and true Ron. Let's go back to him. I digress.
I don't hate the idea of pick a sum of money, $50,000, $100,000, whatever it takes for somebody to go make a pretty good life for themselves in some developing nation and God knows where. Mm-hmm. Take the citizens of this country and say, what, if you don't want to be part of this country and you never want to come back, the only condition is you never come back.
Oh.
Here's the money. Go make a great life for yourself. Because if you don't believe in what this nation stands for, you don't have to be a part of it. That's okay. You know what? The only thing, then we got to really secure the border, because what's going to happen is a lot of them are going to kind of come back, and you got to make sure we keep our end of the bargain. But it's a thought experiment for the kind of nation that I think we need.
Yeah.
Is a nation of citizens who are actually committed to what that flag symbolizes.
Yeah, so it's a form of patriotism. And I think that's what we need. I think if we sell this unified idea of patriotism, hey, it doesn't matter your color, your race, your creed, your ethnicity, where you came from. If you believe in the mission of America, you're a member of America. You're American, right? Because American nationality is based on, hey, do you subscribe to these set of ideas and culture in America? Yes, you do. You're one of us. A lot of countries do it differently now. No matter how hard you think about, oh, I'm a Chinese guy, whatever. Chinese will never make you a Chinese person. Never. But only in America, we open arms. Say, hey, immigrants of the world, come here. We want your best, your worst. All we ask is, hey, you commit to the promise of American values, American ideals, American exceptionism. But no, the liberals, the lefties, they'll tell you, oh, this is a bad country. This country is racist. And then I look at them, I say, okay, so you expect me to believe my Haitian immigrant parents came to this country to set me up for failure. That's what you're trying to tell me. My own life, my own personal experience showed me that I was able to carve a life for myself, successful, doing way better than my parents. In one generation, I changed my parents' outcome. Low, middle class, making 40, 50K a year. And me, by myself, I make more money than both my parents combined. That's the opportunity you say is racist. When if I was born in Haiti, I wouldn't have this opportunity that I have here in the United States. But America's racist. The country that voted in the first minority president in U.S. history, Barack Obama, twice. That's the country you said is racist. Not Finland, not Sweden, not UK, America. Only in America you can criticize the country with a lie. I digress. That's a lie to me. Someone can disagree, but hey, that's how I feel. One thing Haitian culture teach you is to have pride in your country and your family. That's not like a conservative idea, no? I'm proud of America. I'm proud of my family. No one's going to sit here and tell me I'm a victim because I happen to be a certain pigmentation. No, I'm hard-headed when it comes to that. You ain't going to tell me, oh, you're a victim. You're a black man in America. You can't make it out here. You don't see the white man after you? And the first thing I know is I'm like, yo, I'm more likely to get robbed by a black man. Facts. But this is how they separate you. This is how they get you divide you up. Oh, this country's for white Americans, not black Americans. And then we start squabbling amongst each other instead of trying to save and preserve America. Try to do what's best for America. Because at the end of the day, if America falls, we gotta have to find another place to go to. And the other places, last time I checked, they're not as welcoming. Maybe UK. But I'd rather be here. But yeah, I'm done. I'm done. Let's continue.
And I think that immigrants, if we're selecting them in the right way, through meritocratic admission, not just through contributions, but through commitment to the nation, I think that can be part of the national civic revitalization as well.
I like that. The Be My Guest plan. You say you don't like the country, be my guest.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can certainly leave. Well, this ties in with another question. Many on the left don't like the country. They mock the idea of patriotism. They say that this country was evil and rotten from the very beginning. We've heard that for years. Increasingly, a number of people on the right seem to have trouble with patriotism and love of country because
a lot of Republican politicians are scared to be proud or fight for the things they believe in because they care about the opinions of people who will never vote for them, people who will never like them, mainstream media, right? And I think Vivek don't have that problem. Trump don't have that problem. Ron don't have that problem. But Ron has that charisma problem. Look, policy-wise, Trump, Vivek, and Ron DeSantis, they all have like similar positions, maybe little tweaks of difference. What separates them? Obvious thing, the charisma. That's it. Look, I'm giving you the answers, Ron DeSantis supporters. Have your guy do something about that. Have your guy speak with some conviction. Make us feel like he actually believes what he's saying out of his mouth. Because it seems like he's just saying, hey, I'm just doing what works. What works in Florida is do what you say, be anti-woke, and you'll win. That's how it comes across to me with Ron DeSantis. Vivek, he has conviction. He believes what he's saying. Look, he's talking about things that people in the debate states can bring it up and say, hey, he's for targeted immigration. He's for protectionism. He's against China. Reckless. Stand for something or you fall for anything. And it seems like Ron DeSantis doesn't stand for anything but being a good politician. I'm just saying. I mean, because at the end of the day, a lot of people point this critique. I'm not the only one. I heard it all around before. Ron DeSantis has similar policies to Trump. Vivek has different policies from Trump. Now, they share a lot of things, but he's like, yo, you didn't go far enough, Trump. You could have ended affirmative action with an executive order. Oh, what? You were scared of being called racist, Trump? Vivek can ask Trump that. What Ron can ask Trump? Oh, you made back picks. Trump could be like, yo, this is his first time in politics. I didn't know these people were deep state people. I don't know. I'm just saying the debate stage, look out for this guy. That's all I'm saying.
Because they view America as a woke empire that is dedicated, perhaps first and foremost, to spreading, I don't know, transgenderism overseas, and that America basically has lost its way. And so it's very difficult to be patriotic. How would President Ramaswamy recultivate this patriotic love of country in Americans on the left and the right?
So I think first is it does start at the top. This is a cultural tone that we're able to set for the country. I think Ronald Reagan did it. He drove a national revival the last time America was in a national identity crisis.
Yeah, identity crisis. That's where Americans at right now. This is why I think a lot of people focus on the charisma part right now, the conviction part right now. Is because we want, I think what people want to aspire for something. And that's what I think Democrats are really good at. Oh, I'm gonna unify America. Oh, and then the moderates, right? The people who are the biggest group of the biggest voting bloc in America. They go, yes, I want that. I want a unified America. I'm tired of this bipartisan fighting. And all Biden did was act the part. Once he got power, he became who he really is. While the conservatives, we just want a genuine person. We just want a real person. Trump comes off relatable and real. Trump reminds me of my uncle. Crude jokes, make off-putting comments sometimes, funny as hell. Yo, relatable. I relate to this guy. I can trust him. Relatability builds trust. And that's Ron's problem. I know it's been I'm cracking on Ron, but everyone's talking about Ron. Ron raised $8 million. I don't care how much money Ron raised. I'm looking out on Twitter. Everyone can't stop talking about his mess up in the Twitter meltdown. No one can stop talking about how Biden scored on him. This link works. That's all people are talking about. Maybe Ron can make it up in the future later down the line. Maybe he, stuttered, start, whatever. But if Ron wants to get better, he has to fix that. Or else it's going to be Vivek and Trump, and they're going to be the final two nominees battling it out for the presidency.
Crisis, which was in the late 70s. I'm committed to restoring the ideals that set this nation into motion 250 years ago.
Me too.
I don't think we achieve national unity by showing up in the proverbial middle. Say, hold hands, compromise, guys. Can't you get along? Kumbaya. That ain't happening.
And I agree. See, I agree so much with Vivek that as much as I know Trump is like the safe choice, like I know, it's Trump world where you just live in it in the GOP sense. Vic is like, if I had my idealistic dream, he'll be the president 2024. I'm rooting for him the entire way until he concedes. Vivek is my guy. But hey, I digress.
Okay, if that was ever going to happen, that's not happening today. I think we achieve national unity by unapologetically embracing the extremism, the radicalism of the ideas that set this nation into motion.
Hey, the left seems to win. The left seems to embrace their most radical views, and they seem to get wins. I don't know how. This is why I think the GOP don't attract young voters, is because young voters feel like, young voters, they're very idealistic. Yeah, I'm a young voter. I'm 27 years old. I'm very idealistic. I admit that to you. I'm like 49% idealistic. I'm realistic. Don't get me wrong. But big portion of me is I'm very idealistic. I hold people to a certain standard. Hey, why politicians can't be problem solvers? People say, you got to be realistic here. Most politicians only care about being in power. Okay, but why can't we as the American voters demand that out of them? Why can't we create incentives to force them to be idealistic, to strive to be problem solvers, not just problem raisers or problem promoters? Because that's what politicians are pretty much paid for. Hey, look at this problem. This guy can't fix it, but I can. I can try. We don't vote you in to try. We vote you in to do something about it. And I think this is why I started this channel. I wanted to talk directly to Americans, people in general. Like, hey, small steps make big waves. Even if it's just one person, that one person tells another person. You never know. You never know the impact of you giving your opinion can do and change. Butterfly effect, right? This is why I'm doing this video, because I haven't seen anyone do videos about Vivek. It's only about Ron. It's only about Trump. Nikki Haley, I understand. She ain't winning. I'm sorry. She ain't winning. Mike Pence, he ain't winning. I think he has he's supposed to have a CNN town hall. I'm not watching that. I don't care. To me, it's three guys. Vivek, Ron, Trump. That's it. Everyone else, y'all running for VP spots, advisory roles, and fundraising. That's it. That's what y'all here for. In my opinion, I got to put that out there before someone take me, oh, Kenny, you're trying to say, look, I'm just giving you my opinion. That's all I can do. You make up your own mind about this, but I'm giving you mine. I digress. Let me get back.
Free speech, open debate, unbridled meritocracy, self-governance over aristocracy. These are the things that it really means to be American. A belief in the Declaration of Independence, even if we channel into that Declaration of Independence from China, get that policy in there too. But truth be told, this is what it means to be American. And I think done this way, we actually find the common thread that unites us across our diversity. And I think our diversity is not our strength. Our diversity isn't even beautiful. Who cares? We have a bunch of different shades of melanin here, right? I'm looking at the camera crew, a bunch of us here.
Sicilian, it's always been kind of a liminal,
exactly.
racially ambiguous.
We've got a spectrum of melanin content. I think it is utterly meaningless. It is neither beautiful nor our strength unless there's something greater that binds us together across our diversity. Without that, we're really just going through the motions. As a bunch of higher mammals, like a bunch of animals roaming across this American plain. Yeah, sure, America's beautiful, but so are a lot of...
And this is how you get race politics. Everyone don't believe in a unifying idea, aka we're all Americans. No, I'm a black American. I'm this. Oh, I'm an immigrant, right? We all are going to correlate together to vote against somebody, and this is what politics has become. And I think Vivek, and Trump, their advantage is they're giving you a vision of what America could be. Vivek is saying, hey, we could be a national, pro-American, America's a sovereign country, nationalist view. Trump, make America great again. Hey, let's get America back to where it was. Manufacturing, economically, nationally, culturally. What Ron is saying. Ron is just being, I'm anti-woke. I'm cultural war. Yeah, that's fine. That's good. But Republicans should have already learned their lesson. You can't just be anti-something. You got to be for something. I'm just saying.
Other countries, visually speaking. What makes America actually beautiful, what makes America itself, is the existence of that common thread of ideals. And that's what makes e pluribus unum, from many one, mean something. And I think that a policy agenda that flows from those principles, I mean, what have I pledged to that no other U.S. presidential candidate has ever done, I think, but certainly in this cycle no one's yet done, is ending affirmative action. Simple thing. You can do it with an executive order. Stroke of a...
Minute this man said that, I was like, yeah, that's my guy. The minute he said that, I watched this 2 months ago. When I was like, because I knew Vivek already. I read his books. I'm already leaning towards being like, idealistically, I'm like 95%. That's my guy. Minute he said, affirmative action, I'm gonna end it. I said, yeah, it's about time. About time people start disrespecting me, thinking, you got your job because you're a black man. Oh, you need help. You're a pitiful black man. Oh, look at him. He needs some, look, black people are not helpless. It's time that people give black people their respect. Hey, you can do it for yourself, bro. You don't need the government to do anything for you. I say this message, apparently I'm a coon for saying that. Craziness. A black man like me says, hey, I don't need the government. I don't need help. Just get out of my way. Makes me a coon. Imagine that. Look at that backwards thinking in my community, in America. Bunch of white liberals push this idea on the black community. And you fight against it, you get labeled as an other. Sad state of affairs. And a country can't unite if this is what's going on in the country. Especially with affirmative action. You're creating more racial division with affirmative action. That needs to end. And if Vivek can get Trump or Ron to adopt, hey, yeah, you're right, affirmative action should end. We should end that. Ron looks more likely to do that than Trump, but because Ron is already doing that with DEI here in Florida. He's already defunding that stuff. So if he can get them to pick up that as a policy position or an executive order position, hey, he won in my eyes. But hey, I digress.
A pen. Executive Order 11246. Okay? Lyndon Johnson created affirmative action in America. Any president, including a Republican president, including Donald Trump, could have ended it. I know why they didn't. I talked to many of the policy people. I pushed them on this. They said that, well, it's not a political hill we wanted to die on. Maybe it's hard if you're a white guy in the White House to end affirmative action. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm 37. Maybe because I'm not. Well, I don't. Maybe it's because I don't
37.
care. I'm going to end affirmative action. Abandon climate religion. With the heart of climate religion is really apologizing for the success of the modern West and modern America as we know it. I refuse to apologize for that. But I think that these can actually be unifying ideas. In some ways, these are extreme ideas to some people. But I think it's by embracing the extremism of the ideals that underlie them that'll actually unify Americans across the lines of not just identity politics, but even partisan politics. And again, maybe I'll eat my words, but I think 2024 will be a landslide election. And I'm bluntly running because I think I'm going to be the guy that delivers it. I'm not kidding. I think it's going to happen.
This is the guy that said, he's running for a VP spot. Nah. To say that, he's actually trying to become president. I think so. Because I was pretty convinced, the way he said, I think I'm going to be the guy to do it. He then stuttered, and he didn't stutter, he didn't do nothing. He's like, yeah, I said it. And he's working like he wants it. He's doing tours around the country, talking to the Americans. He's doing the work. He's backing up what he's saying with action. He's going out on interviews. Ron does what? He did 2 interviews? Everyone on his side. This guy, Vivek went to CNN, MSM. He's all over the place. He's sincere to me. That's why I trust him more than Ron DeSantis. I digress.
I've told people from the beginning, as I mentioned, I said, don't underestimate this guy. He's thought through.
Vivek. Let me know if I said it right, because I've been trying. Or I could just be safe and be Ramaswamy. I'm gonna say Ramaswamy, but it's a mouthful. That's why I keep saying Vivek for some reason. But it's Vivek or Vivek. Vivek. Okay, I'm gonna try to say that. I appreciate the correction, guys.
These things, and there is a coherence. Maybe people totally reject your agenda, but there is a coherence to it. And so let's bring that coherence from the national malaise that you're describing right down to the fundamental political unit. Right now, marriage rates are at or near all-time lows, birth rates at all-time lows. You're seeing abortion is still pretty high. So the American family is in free fall. What policies would President Ramaswamy undertake to reverse that decline of the family?
So I think there is a bit of an assault on the family undertaken through the assault on religious liberty in our country, too. So this is a longer discussion about religious liberty, but I think it's closely linked to family. I think the Equality Act, which I don't think was appropriately termed, but nonetheless could be a Pandora's box if we let it be. I think for me, as president, it's important to hold the line there to say that now you're not going to create the conditions for using that law as a basis for labeling a religious organization to be a hate group or whatever that changes their lending standards. Right?
Does it not already? The Equality Act.
It already does, right?
It already
Equality Act
does.
worsened it, but I think it was a symptom of a deeper trend in this country. And so one of the things that I'm able to do, because I'm not a Christian nationalist, I'm not even Christian. I'm Hindu, right? I went to Christian schools and whatever, and I'm a deeply faith-based person. I can do what somebody who wears their Christianity on their sleeve can't do. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that literally in modern American culture, it's really difficult for them to.
Yeah, modern American culture there is very, like, I believe that's all a stat that majority of Americans are non-religious. So if you're a religious Christian, a lot of things you say you can't get away with doing it in the national discussion. Moderate voters are automatically turned off by you because you announce that you're a Christian. You wear it on your sleeve, right? This is why Mitt Romney, a part of the reason why he didn't win. People kept mentioning he's Mormon, he's this. People were like, no. It turns off American voters. That's another angle he's going by. And I kind of agree with this analysis, given what's going on in our country. And I think one thing the conservative movement needs to stop doing as well is to stop being like, like, to me, if you're a religious person, you believe in something called a higher power, right? You believe in a higher power. And I think if you believe in a higher power, whatever that higher power may be for you, you should be a part of our party, right? And that's the kind of a general abstract messaging that the Republican Party can use instead of letting the left tie them in or pigeonhole them saying they're only for white Christian males, right? They should counter that, say, no, we're for everybody. We're for everyone. We just want best for, if you believe America is the greatest place in the world and you want to preserve it to being the greatest place in the world, you'll vote for us. So, do something with that messaging. I think that's one thing the Republican Party can do a better job of. I digress.
To do what I can do in offering a staunch defense of not another inch budging on the issue of religious liberty. And I think that's intricately linked to family formation as well. Now, I'm very clear about what my priorities are and what they aren't. And there's some things that I think are important that still aren't my priorities. One of the things, it's my belief that you do 5 or 6 things, and I've laid out what those 5 or 6 things are. But you do those 5 or 6 things well as U.S. president, you're going to be one of the greatest presidents in modern history. So for me, that's shutting down the administrative state. Actually, I've identified specific government agencies to shut down. I've specifically flagged the Department of Education. I've specifically flagged the.
Yo, he's preaching my language right now because the Department of Education is teaching CRT. They're trying to mandate this stuff. That stuff needs to get shut down. And I think Vivek is the guy, right? Ramaswamy, he points out, like, end of the day, whether you get Ramaswamy or Trump, both guys are saying, hey, we're going to shrink the bureaucracy. We're going to defund the Department of Education. Him, he's more articulate, though. He gives you the targets. Hey, this is the target I'm going for, and I'll let him continue the rest. But Trump seems to be like, oh, I'm firing everybody. So either choice, you're going to get, this is why I think it's going to be Vivek and Trump as the final two. Because American people, once they see Ron, hey, Vivek, he mentioned that he wants to shrink the government. He wants to defund and abolish the Department of Education. Ron, what about you? What say you? Are you willing to commit to that today to the American people? I don't know if Ron can answer that question. He might. I mean, he defunded the DEI program already. So that might be a winning target for him too. But that's the point I'm talking about. Like, Vivek bringing this stuff up will force the other candidates to have a position on these things, especially if it's popular. You got to go back, okay? Yeah.
FBI. In the Department of Education's case, it needs to be shut down and not come back. In the FBI's case, we need to shut it down and create something new to take its place.
Now, how do you do it? There are so many presidential, probably every Republican presidential candidate, I don't know about the FBI, but has said, I'm going to shut down the Department of Education. And then none of them ever get it done.
Yeah, because they all have a flawed view of Article 2 of the Constitution. They think they need Congress to do it. I think it's a mistake. I don't think they need Congress to do it. I think the Constitution says that the President of the United States runs the executive branch of the government. If you run the executive branch of the government, that means you run the executive branch of the government. Maybe it's my private sector view here. Maybe it's not being a politician.
But I can share that.
I did go to law school, but here it's actually my private sector view that allows me to interpret the Constitution as it ought to be interpreted here.
And this is the kind of the ways of why I think I prefer non-career politicians, because they don't have to fear, like, career politicians, they fear like, oh, this guy helped me get in, this guy gave me advice. Like, there's some loyalty to the establishment there, right? And this is one of my critiques for Ron DeSantis, right? He has some I don't want to, hey, that's my commitment, that's my committee. Ron, don't decommission the Department of Education, right? While with businessmen like Vivek and Trump, they come in and say, hey, I'm the executive, I could fire and hire whoever I want. But that's not how it works in our government right now. But that's how they want. We want some revolution. We want some innovation, because it's about time that the government gets some sort of innovation. Well, I digress. I want to get through the video,
which is that if someone works for you and you can't fire them, that means they don't work for you. It means you work for them, because you're responsible for what they do without having any authority over it.
Exactly.
And that's and now I'm the fool running for the White House, where supposedly that's the position, right? Well, that's why I'm going to change it. And I'm going to do it by executive order. I think that, and it will be litigated. But I think it's an interesting time to do it. There's a lot of things that give me a sense of urgency to run for president in this cycle to deliver this change. This is one of them. I think we have a Supreme Court that likely shares my view of the Constitution here. And then we codify it in judicial precedent to make sure that I'm not just the first president, but the first of many who will actually be able to be the person who's not only elected to run the government, but who actually does run the government.
And I can agree with that. Like, two-way street. Hey, if it's fine for you, it should be fine for another president, regardless if they're Democrat, Libertarian, whatever. If the next president come after you, Vivek, and he's allowed to fire and hire whoever he wants in the government, they share that power equally. And that's fine. I can respect that. I can respect someone who hold themselves to the very same standard they set. I have a problem with politicians, especially Democrats. Democrats seems to be a big proponent of that. Democrats will change the rules, and then when the Republicans get into power, aka the Supreme Court is a big example. Before Obama, I think 2008, you needed 60%. You needed a 60 vote to nominate a Supreme Court justice. Then Obama went in, changed the rules. Simple majority will do. And what's his name? Mitch McConnell came out and says, "You're going to regret this. You're going to regret this, Democrats." Trump wins. Super majority in the House, simple majority, boom. They're putting in Supreme Court justices left and right, and then the Democrats go, "Oh no, you shouldn't be able to just put Supreme Court justice," but you change the rules first. That's my problem with a lot of Democratic politicians. They'll change the rules because it benefits them, but then when those same rules don't benefit them anymore, they want to stand on their principles, or they want to claim, Republicans are not holding up to their principles. No, they're playing the same game you're playing. Don't get mad that they decide, okay, you change the rules. Okay, we're playing by these rules now. That's why I can respect Ramaswamy. He's not just looking at, I benefit from these rules, that's it. No, he's thinking about it from a long-term perspective. Hey, me and other presidents can do this. Nonpartisan. I don't think he should get much pushback on that point, but I digress.
I give Donald Trump a lot of credit for identifying that as a problem, but if he had actually fixed it, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it.
That's a critique he can give Trump. Look, I'm gonna stop shilling for the guy, but I like him.
The way you're talking about executive power is different than the way many Republicans and conservatives in my lifetime have talked about it. Many conservatives have said, we want fewer executive orders. We want less executive power. You've suggested perhaps...
I don't think it's realistic right now, especially that in 2024, whoever we elect, we're essentially making them a lame duck president. So I think executive order will be very relied upon for the candidate of 2024. That's all I'm trying to say. So I think what Vivek is saying here is pretty much on the ball, on the nail, hit the nail right on the head. But I digress.
Executive power is a way to protect the people.
In a one-way ratchet. as a downside, as a downsizing mechanism. So I think the proper concern is that actually they needed to make sure Congress authorized funds before the president actually spent it. That's actually the historical concern. But the problem is there was the inverse then built in by Congress, which is an overreach. So this is like the 1974 Impoundment Protection Act passed under Nixon, or was actually to protect against stuff Nixon was doing, which basically said that even if Congress allocates money to a specific agency and the president doesn't want to spend that money, the president still has to. I think it's unconstitutional. I think it's an unconstitutional overreach of Congress. I think it's the symmetric point is the president can't spend money that Congress never budgeted, but just because Congress budgeted it doesn't mean the president actually has to spend it. If they see as the leader of the executive branch that there's waste, fraud, abuse, and so on. Just like a board of directors to a CEO says, here's your budget and research and development, but the CEO says that actually I know that that project is going to fail. Do I still have to spend that money? Absolutely not. It makes no sense. That ought to be the relationship. I think it is the relationship intended between Congress and the president too. So I'm all about being very high resolution on this stuff, but I think as it relates to the exercise of restraint, firing someone, not hiring someone in an agency that didn't exist, but firing someone in an agency that does exist. If you're running the executive branch of the government, you got to be able to do that, or else you're not actually running it. So in a one-way ratchet, in the downsizing realm, I think executive order is absolutely an appropriate mechanism, and I think I'm on constitutionally solid grounds, and I think the current Supreme Court is highly likely to agree with me, which means we codify that in precedent, and I hope every future president, whether they're of the Democratic Party or Republican Party for that matter, thanks hopefully the next administration if I'm successful for actually delivering it.
That's good. Yo, that's a great, like, logical, conclusive, like, no, I see no fault in that. Hey, give the president power to fire existing branches. Not, hey, I create a new branch. Okay, legislation, you can hire the people, but I'm allowed to fire the people that are already existing in the branch. And that power should be for all the presidents, not just me, a Republican president, but Democratic president or any whatever president come down the line. I agree with that. Right? And this is what career politicians don't do. They don't think about, hey, how can we improve the system? How can we make it more effective? Right? And I know a lot of people are going to say, hey, we don't like executive orders. I understand, but for the practicality of the situation you're going to place the 2024 president in, this is needed.
I, in fact, share this more expansive view.
Oh, good. Okay. All right, good.
Power. And as president, you will be the top law enforcement officer in the United States, the capo di tutti capi. Now, we have a big crime problem in the country right now. Some say we have an over-incarceration problem. Some look around at the murder rate, they say we have an under-incarceration problem. Some people say we need to abolish prisons. Some people say we need to build more prisons. I guess one could say that we should keep it exactly the same. Where does President Ramaswamy stand?
I do think that there are too many people incarcerated, but there's a problem of being over-inclusive and under-inclusive, right? We're not actually arresting people who ought to be arrested. And we're channeling that to put a lot of people in prison and spend a lot of money on it, even in ways that don't really respect even a law and order culture, because the asymmetry between the two is itself, I think, a legal betrayal. This isn't a policy answer, but it's just a first personal answer. There's a guy who works for me, and I'm glad he works for me, but I'm not glad about the circumstances that brought him to me. He was a cop in Oregon, and he always wanted to be a cop. That was all he ever wanted to do. In fact, he didn't even go to college because he knew the fastest path to being a cop was to actually join the military for a couple of years, because that would make him eligible to be a cop. It was his life dream. And then he goes to Oregon, streets of Portland, Oregon, and this is where he can actually do some good as a cop until they tell him, here are the people you can't arrest.
Yep, selective justice. You can't do that. Either it applies to everyone or it applies to no one. And I'm glad he's bringing this personal story up. And it seems like he talks to everyday American people, right? And being the chief executive officer, and he mentioned that there's too many people in prison or over. Trying to balance this stuff out is right, but end of the day, everyone has to abide by the same standards. And I think giving people special treatment is what causes discontent in our culture. This is why a lot of people don't like a lot of black people right now, because black people will say, hey, you can't be racist to me, but I can be racist to you. I can call you a racial slur, but if you call me a racial slur, you lose your job, you get ostracized, you get censored, you get fired, you get debanked. All these things you get hit with, you get defamed. But if you do the same thing, if they do the same thing to you, oh, nothing happens to them. They might get rewarded with money. This is what I'm talking about. Like these racial grievance culture stuff, this black victimhood stuff. It's dividing the country because black people automatically assume anything negative that happens to them. Here's my alibi. It's because of my race. Oh, I got fired from my job. It's because my hiring manager is racist. No personal accountability. And I think if we all have that expectation that, hey, everyone's responsible for themselves and everyone is in some way responsible for the outcomes that they have in their life, I think we'll have a better America. That's all I'm trying to say.
People were actually known to be burglars, people who were literally shooting meth on the street. You can see it, but for whatever reason, they've decided that these are the people you can't arrest. Full stop. They've just made that executive decision. It doesn't make any sense why.
Nope.
And so he's left writing traffic tickets for guys who speed or run red lights. He said, I refuse to pull over the people who speed. I pull over people who run red lights, but what I started to do is I just refused to write him a ticket. I would just pull him over and roll down the window. And
you're creating bad incentives. Like this is what the government does. The government create incentives, good or bad. And you have to determine the candidates you're putting in policies that incentivize the country to be better, not worse. I'm just mentioning that.
To say, sir, do you mind not running the red light next time? And he'd say, yeah, sure, and I'd let him go.
If you can get away with murder, you should be able to get away with the red light.
Yeah, and I said, why did you even bother pulling him over? He said, sometimes people would just complain that I didn't pull him over if they saw me, so I would just pull him over and then have a conversation because I couldn't in good conscience do that. And eventually he became so jaded that he left law enforcement altogether and works for me in a different capacity. But I think the problem is the uneven enforcement of laws as they stand. Now, you're talking about the DOJ. I'm a big fan of bringing the civil rights revolution into the 21st century by applying it even-handedly. We talked about political expression as a civil right. That's a legislative point. Mm-hmm. But I do like one of the things I'm going to do with the DOJ is actualize a legal theory that I advanced in Woke Inc. I think it's on solid ground, if I may say so myself, but we lay out all the historical legal precedents that justify it.
It was good. Like, he made the case of why, hey, this stuff, this is a religion. Imagine the DOJ was a Christian department, like 80% of it was Christian, and they were investigating atheist organizations or Marxist organizations that people would be like, this is a breach of my constitutional rights. He's saying, hey, this is what the DOJ is doing to other people that don't align with them either politically, socially, culturally, idealistically. DOJ is corrupt, man. I'm serious. Like, and that's a department that needs to not be. I don't know about dismantling it, but for sure there needs to be some accountability somewhere. I don't know where, but that department needs some investigation. I'm just saying.
So the civil rights protection against discrimination on the basis of religion doesn't just mean that you cannot discriminate against an employee for their religion. It also means that you as the employer cannot force an employee to bow down to your religion.
And that's wokeism.
So the question is whether the modern DEI agenda or wokeness or whatever fits the Supreme Court's test for what counts as a religion. Turns out it meets that test in spades. Certain clothes you can't wear, words you can't say, apologies you must recite. It's a systematic worldview rather than a worldview on it.
And this is a good point to bring up to the moderates as well. Is that, hey, a worldview is being pushed on a group of people, regardless if they believe it or not. How would you feel if insert religion here was pushed on you? That your employment is hinged on the fact that you abide by this religion belief, even if you don't believe in it. That's what I deal with in corporate America. And I think this is a good case that Vivek can make on the debate stage, regardless if he's the GOP candidate or GOP in the GOP primary or in the presidential candidate against Joe Biden. Vivek could do very well. And I think even if he don't win, he'll make a great candidate for 2028 as well, but I really want him to win 2024. But, it's still, like I said, it's still likely that Trump is going to be the person. But if Trump can take some of this positions that Vivek has, I'll be a lot happier about voting for Trump. That's all I'm trying to say.
On a narrow set of questions, secular humanism meets the Supreme Court's test for what counts as
sacramental.
Yeah. So, exactly. So wokeness, certainly meets that test to a T. And so actually much of what you see in corporate America, even in the schools, et cetera, the enforcement of the DEI agenda is actually a civil rights violation, not under a change law, under existing law today. So I'll instruct the Department of Justice to prioritize ridding ourselves of this national cancer by applying, who would have ever thought, our civil rights laws.
By interpreting wokeism as a religion.
By acknowledging that wokeism is a religion under the Supreme Court's test, under the legal definition of a religion. I've not one but two chapters of this in Woking. One chapter is wokeness is like a religion. Actually, the next chapter is actually wokeness is literally a religion.
Yep.
So the first one was colloquial, but the second one we actually just legally meter it against, Yale Law School professor approved. I've had a bunch of people kick the tires on this. I think this is I co-developed it actually with a former law professor of mine. I think this is actionable today.
Yep.
People ask, what can a president do about the woke epidemic? Well, a lot of it's just fundamentally illegal under existing civil rights statutes.
I agree so much. Right, and the chief diversity officer is pretty much the priest of this stuff. And it's imagine that they're creating their own demand. Hey, corporations, you don't want to be seen as racist, don't you? No, you don't want to be seen as racist. Okay, you got to hire DEI everywhere. And of course they're going to be pushing this stuff. Of course they're going to try to justify why you need it. And the corporations are buying into this stuff hook, line, and sinker because they believe they have to.
And you know what? People may say, oh, that's the free market. Can't have it both ways. Okay, if you want to get rid of the civil rights laws and the protected classes altogether, let's have that conversation. But so long as we have it, we got to apply those standards even-handedly.
Yes, it does. Yep.
So when I think about the core issues of national identity and culture, I do think that the use of executive authority, even in legal enforcement of civil rights violations or legal violations that are rampant in America today, is a lever that I'll have to use.
Well, speaking of enforcement, Vivek, I would like to sit here all night.
And that's the end of the video, guys. I know it's been long. I try to keep this under a minute and 30, but I had a lot to say in this video. All right, I really like Vivek as my ideal choice, my ideal candidate. I really believe he's going to do very well in the GOP primaries for 2024. It's going to shock a lot of the people who haven't seen Vivek, but ain't going to shock me if you read his work, Woke Inc., Nation of Victims. I did some videos on him. The guy knows his stuff. And I think he can give anybody hell in the debate stage. But hey, I digress. You guys let me know in the comment section if you're watching this on the replay, who is your guy? If it's DeSantis, you didn't like the fact I criticized DeSantis a lot. I didn't go after Trump too much, but I kind of did critique Trump. I say, hey, look, there's some things that he missed there. Right, he could be a little bit stronger on these issues, and I think Vivek is the guy to challenge him for that, or challenge him to be that. Right, because this is why I said I always say, hey, Trump shouldn't be running unchallenged. When Trump was saying, oh, I'm gonna boycott the debate stage, I said, nah, Trump can't do that because the DNC are not hosting any debates for the Democratic side. That means the Republican primary is the only nationally televised debate in town. That means you're gonna have the whole eyeballs of America. And this is the opportunity the GOP have. That's what I'm saying. The DNC made a big mistake by prematurely backing Biden. Oh, we're not going to host any primary debates. That's a mistake on the DNC part. Because now you got Democrats just waiting around being like, I might as well just watch the Republicans what they're talking about. And you're giving the Republicans a bigger platform than the DNC, because you're essentially saying Biden's going to run unchallenged. So there's no point of the Democrats to tune in for Biden. And most Democrats, I think only 43% of Democrats said they want Biden to run again. A lot of Democrats don't want Biden. So they're going to be like, damn, I'm stuck with Biden. I have no choice but to vote for Biden, technically. Let me just see what the Republicans are doing here. And this is an opportunity, a lot of GOP, and this is also an opportunity for Trump to win some moderate voters. Because they're the only game in town. The RNC is hosting the only presidential debate in town. So this is a big opportunity for Trump. So Trump do this. This is a big political mistake for him if he tried to avoid the primaries. Because a lot of Trump supporters are saying, oh, he shouldn't even waste his time with this. He has such a big lead. But look at the opportunity. DNC is not hosting any debates. Where the martyrs going to go to see the candidates? Yeah, they can go check out JFK by himself or on some smaller platform. But the GOP primaries are right here. People are going to be like, let me see what the Republicans are talking about. It's a bigger platform. I don't know. I just see a lot of opportunity there, and I don't think it'll be wise on Trump to ditch the GOP debate stage. That's all I'm trying to say. But hey, what do you guys think? You think Vivek is a good guy? You think I made my case coherently or persuasively? I tried. I got a little hype. I got a little carried away, but I still finished under 2 hours, right? So let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Let me know some of the concerns you have with Vivek, because I know there's people who have concerns about Vivek. I think George Soros funded was one of the bigger issues that a lot of people had with Vivek. Let me know your thoughts so I could, better round out my knowledge about Vivek. I could be starry-eyed. So, right now, I admit that I'm somewhat biased because I have both his books, Nation of Victims and Woke Inc. I watched a lot of his stuff, a lot of talks with debates with Ben Shapiro and other people. So I can be little starry eyes. I have rose-colored glasses. I admit that. So let me, balance me out. Give me some critiques you have against Vivek. Why you don't like him? What you think he could work on? What you think he's not addressing? And it'll be an interesting conversation or for me to reflect on. But hey, I digress. Hope you guys have a good weekend. Enjoy your Memorial Day. Shout out to all the veterans that have worked to preserve our country and fought for our country and served our country. I really appreciate you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed your Memorial Day weekend. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, leave a like in the live stream. Don't forget to comment to boost engagement. And I'll see you guys on the next live